Hello, everyone, and welcome to our weekly webinar. Today is the last day of April 2021, Friday, April 30th, 2021. Today is Arbor Day. Happy Arbor Day, everyone. Thanks for joining us. It's also a very special day today because it's our 4th anniversary. We are turning 4 years old today. So, hi, Jen.
Yay!
I know, it's just like so crazy.
Happy birthday to us, dear friend.
Right. Yeah, yeah. So exciting. We're going to send an email later today, but we just wanted to tell you guys first. And yeah, it's been 4 years of amazing stuff. We accomplished so much. We went to so many places, and it's thanks to you that we can do these. So please help us reach our 40th anniversary by continuing supporting us, showing up, painting with us, because that's the only reason why we do the. I mean, we do it for other reasons, obviously, but that's how we can carry on. So um very excited about today. This will be a very good assignment or good painting collection, just because I feel not only symbolically and conceptually this is important, but at the same time I feel like everyone loves trees. Everyone has a story about trees. Everyone has memories from their childhood revolving trees, and that means that everyone can really find our paintings more attractive for collecting them. So we're really excited. We're going to practice uh, um, greens, study green color, talk about the architecture of the tree, what are the habits that we usually have, uh, how much of a role association plays when we do paintings or drawings of trees, and how we can break that association with new information and new things to take care of. So I'm gonna jump right ahead. And I think that's good. Okay, perfect. Whoopsie. Um, so really briefly, I'm using a 12 by 16 format just because it's large enough. So hopefully it'll be a little bit easier to view. Let me just get a little closer. I think that's okay. I was able to run to Kinko's and print this image. I am very fortunate that I live in a place that has like trees around me, and I'm also very fortunate that I have lived here for a long time. So I have been able to establish relationships with the trees here in different ways. But I took pictures of a few things around, and I decided to take a photo of the cypress trees that are in front of our house. And so that's going to be my image. I'm going to do this like 2 trees. And I know that the things got exaggerated because of the lens of the camera, but I'm going to keep that diagonal. So I'm making my first artistic decision. The cameras that we use distort things. So I don't have enough Wi-Fi to paint outside, and it's really hot. It would have been amazing, but I'm just going to use the image, and purposely I'm going to use this diagonal. I think that's going to be really interesting. So this is going to be my composition. We hope you watched the presentation. We finally were able to record the live presentation, and with the slides. It's been 2 weeks that we haven't been able to do so. So we're excited. And also there is a new episode on our multiple podcast platforms. We're everywhere that you can listen to podcasts. So uh, we say this because it's important to study what kind of composition you're gonna want for your painting. And we intentionally chose images that had different compositions, not only full trees, but also sections of trees. And Also, the cover of the webinar is a John Constable painting of the trunk of a tree. By the way, Jen, I haven't been able to upload it. So if you can find it and upload it, it's John Constable. I think it's 1874 or something like that. He did this ridiculous painting of a tree that looks like a photograph. Perhaps we didn't include it in the folder just because it's so intimidating. It's just absolutely ridiculous. But it's just the trunk and the root system essentially as it goes down the ground. So looking up could be a good point of view. Looking down could be a great point of view. It just depends of what you think it's more artistic or what you are in the mood for, because roots are very interesting as well. And some trees have root systems that start before they just go underground. So that could be a very visually interesting take and very modern take on a portrait of a tree. Why did we call it a portrait of a tree? And we should have perhaps explained this during the presentation. We strongly believe that trees are sentient beings, and as such, we want to honor them with a proper portrait. So portraiture, it's not just associated with the human species, but also with other stuff that we want to. And trees is one of the categories. So just gonna go ahead and start my sketch. Again, I'm using, I'm gonna talk about the format in 3 points. Number 1, the size is 12 by 16. Again, it's just because I feel hopefully you can see things better on the camera and on the recorded video. Number 2 is the shape. I'm using a rectangular shape, and there are different kinds of shapes of formats, circle, oval, square, and also combination of different different ones, I guess. Rectangular is the shape that I'm using. And also the orientation is a portrait orientation. So think a little bit about your image, think a little bit about the size that you're working on, and then you can decide if you don't have a square format, if you want to do a landscape or a portrait orientation. So what I'm gonna do is I'm also, because I made this print that facilitates a little bit the translation, I'm going to align the bottom of the print to the bottom edge of my format, because I want more space on top, and I want things to be grounded at the bottom. And this has to do with one compositional principle called movement, which is how much space, which is defined about, or it's defined by how much space we leave around the focal points. So sometimes we put things really close to the edges of our format, and that causes interruptions and also the slowdown of a visual flow. So I just want to make sure that my trees, the tip of the cypress trees, are not too close to the edge, the upper edge. Okay, I just have that. So a little bit of time figuring out how many focal points you're gonna have, what's gonna be important. Don't exceed 3 focal points or more, because it's just gonna be very distracting. And we think like the more things we dump on a painting, the more time people will spend reading these visual elements, but it doesn't happen necessarily that way. Sometimes an excess of focal points causes precisely the opposite effect. People just kind of like slide to the right or to the left. I still haven't figured out exactly what's that direction really. So I'm just gonna go ahead and then set up the parameters. And actually, if you haven't done it yet, but yardsticks are amazing. So I'm just gonna set up the height I think that's good. And so I know that this is gonna be the height of one tree, and then this is gonna be the height of the other tree. Okay, already this seemed very easy, but I'm already feeling that it's not as easy as it seemed. And I don't want to measure too many things because I feel like it's important to keep things spontaneous a little bit and not super um, uh, uh, calibrated, I guess. But in those simple triangular shapes that seemed like, you know, that wasn't a big deal, I'm already seeing so many things. You know, I'm very fond of this Asian pear tree right here. We had it for so many years, and we have a couple of bird houses there. No birds have ever nested in those houses, so you know. But we also have a bird feeder for hummingbirds, and hummingbirds have been nesting around our house, and I don't know, so I'm just gonna put the Asian pear just because conceptually it just means so much to us. I think it comes. And then there's a little bit of the, should I put the, yeah, I'm gonna put the edge of our home, the tiles. I think so. That's the neighbor's tree. We hate the neighbor. I'm just gonna be like upfront. Neighbor, if you're watching this from the future, I'm sorry, but you're terrible. So we're not gonna put the oak trees. Sorry, they're just awful. And there's a rubber tree on the back. I'm just gonna put the rubber tree. Yeah, just peeking. I think that's really playful, and I like that. So I've been talking about focal points don't exceed 3. I'm just like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm just gonna treat this a little bit less in a less focused way. This will be the main subject. All right, so here we go. Okay. I'm gonna start using the side of the charcoal because one of the most important things, or the one of the important things in this study or portrait, is to find out, acknowledge, and have always present the light direction on our subject. Because I feel like, you know, one of the things that we do when we paint trees is, okay, we're going to paint them green. And we forget, I want to, hopefully we want to bring you back to when we were kids and we were drawing or painting trees. Did the light direction ever came to your mind before you painted a tree and decided, okay, this side is lighter and this side is darker? I'm going to speak for myself. That never was the case. I was never told that that was important. So I'm saying this because some of the things that we wire in our minds when we are kids continue to play a role as adults. So if you haven't thought of the light direction when you were sketching the tree, think of it now. It's very important in order to create the illusion of volume. So that's why I'm going to use the side of the charcoal, and this is the lighter part, but then I'm going to recognize, because of the cone shape, that this is the darker area. Jen, did you find the John Constable ridiculousness?
Yeah, it's so insane. I mean, it's very easy to just think that it's a picture of something.
Yeah.
I copied it and put it in the photo album, but I hope that the way that I took the picture of it gives it the credit it deserves because sometimes my picture doesn't translate into the album. Okay. So I encourage everyone to look at it yourself as well, because it might be sharper in what you see it on than what you will in the photo album.
Okay, yeah, I've seen some renderings of that painting, and some are like very much filtered and tweaked and everything. So, and some are super soft. They're very smoky and or foggy, I should say. And that was 1874, 1870s? I'm not sure, or 1820s, maybe 1820s.
It is, yeah, 1821.
Oh my gosh, stop.
No. I
Was
love this
photography,
time period.
I'm sorry?
I love this time period in painting, the romanticism. Oh,
Yeah,
so beautiful.
yeah.
It was photography invented is your question. I will look that up. I feel like it
Photography.
was like it was just coming, right?
I think so. I think it was early 1800s for sure. I don't know how commercially available it was. Um, Definitely it was invented or as a commercial or a modern um, thing. I think it was early 1800. I'm not sure if you want to find out because that'd be interesting because that painting, it's a photograph. It's,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a photograph or it looks like a photograph. I mean, it's better than a photograph. So it probably costs
Yeah.
some sort of like, I don't know. I mean, I can't, I'm picturing people looking at that painting and just passing out. It's just,
Yeah.
it's so bonkers. Okay, so this, as usual, it's becoming much more complicated and sophisticated as I thought. Than I thought. I'm sorry. All right. So here it goes. All right. So things. Tell me, Jen.
Oh, I just turned it to mute, but I'll let you know in just
Okay.
a second.
Okay. Perfect. And if you find out if you have find out any anecdotes perhaps around that painting or John Constable. I don't think we've talked about this dude very much.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, I don't know him.
uh,
But
I-
yeah, okay, so I did find the first photograph was 1826. So 5 years later,
okay,
just on the cusp.
that is good. Okay, because sometimes I feel my thought was photography was invented. Painters were like, screw this, we're just gonna prove that paintings are better. And then he just came up with this amazing painting, but not even, it was before. So there was no intent to compete with the medium, the new medium. It was just John Constable being ridiculous.
Ridiculous, exactly. Ay. Now we're all challenged today.
No, right? Yeah, no, we're not gonna reveal that until later because it's just gonna put a curse on us. Okay, so I think I'm okay with the composition. I'm actually happy about the movement, compositional movement above. This was a good decision because I want to make sure that there's space, enough movement, compositional movement to allow for the definition of the tree. So I've chosen a tree that it's not giving me the opportunity to talk about the habits, the bad habits that we acquire when we're kids. Not our fault because we acquire them because of the fact that no one tells us anything about how to do this, and then we just do our best. So first of all, if you have a trunk, I'm sorry. Yes, if you have a trunk on your painting, trunks are not defined by two parallel lines. There are no parallel lines on any organic form. Only artificial shapes or objects have potential parallel lines, but we tend to make trunks of trees very parallel, number one. The trunks are the result of decades of natural history or the natural life of the trees. So they're not regular. Another thing about the architectural aspect of the trunk is that it has a tendency, I mean, unless there's a species of tree that breaks the rules, to have like more, I'm going to use the word girth. I don't know if that's a good word or not. On the closer to the ground than when the trunk starts splitting into branches. It doesn't matter if it's a palm tree with no branches or a regular tree, whatever regular means. But there is a divergence and convergence happening. So they're not just like poles. Tree trunks are not poles. They're not posts. They're not pillars. They're not columns. There is a life and history and stories at the same time on the trunk itself. So shape wise, just go back to the trunk and make sure that you exaggerate the irregularities of that shape, because the first thing that I did when I painted my first trees, boom, just like a telephone post, I guess, or like a bar. Second thing is that trees are designed to hold the leaves in a way that allows for expansion. In order to do that, the tree architecture um, thins out the branches as they expand outside of the trunk. So trees are able to reach out at a long distance from where they rooted, and they do that by gradually, and the magical word here, it's rhythmically, thin out the branches as they stretch out. So the weight of the branch doesn't bring down the actual canopy or the tree itself. And they're able, by that manner, they're able to really stretch out as far as they can. And it's a wonderful example of how the physics of the tree are mind-blowing, how they're able, except for this cypress tree, obviously you don't see any branches, but it's just amazing. I'm saying this because another bad habit that we acquire is that we make the branches the same width from the core of the trunk all the way to the edges of the canopy. We make the exact same thickness of the branches. And that's not exactly how it works. And that's one of the reasons why we brought up the Paul Klee tree at the very beginning of the presentation, because it shows the amazing rhythmic thinning out of the branch to make sure that the branch doesn't have a weight that brings down that branch and then maybe breaks it over time. It's just incredible. So think of the branches. I think I'm going to stop there because we're going to talk about canopies and leaves and density and edges and, the thinness of the contour of the tree. And also canopies are not flat. Another thing that I did when I was a kid is I just did the canopy of the tree was a circle. Okay. So whether, first of all, I never as a child, oh my gosh, that sounds like so, I don't know, confessional. I never painted a tree from observation, from live. Never, ever. It was always, okay, paint a tree. And I was always in a room or just like whatever on a table. And I always had to visualize in my mind what a tree I thought would look like. I don't remember a single time as a kid where I just was outside and I actually looked and then painted. At least that was my experience. And that's a very important note, because sometimes we use association in order to paint trees or anything for that matter. And that means that instead of using observation and actually seeing how things unfold, automatically we flip a switch and we start practicing or using visualization, which is our own interpretation of an object, regardless if we are in front of it or not. It's amazing because that switch doesn't flip back. So once we start using visualization, we're going to use like greens that are really nowhere to be found. We're going to use shapes that you cannot really see. And we're doing all kinds of like very strange things. So it's really hard to flip the switch back and focus on observation alone. So okay, so those two things, the trunk and the branches, and also no parallel lines. All right, I'm gonna use, I'm gonna start the staining, okay? And I've been rushing like crazy, so I don't have my paint. So this would be a perfect example to actually take a little bit of a break, and then just gonna put the color palette, and I'm gonna put all the regular colors, the 2 whites, and then definitely for this, I think we're gonna be using the light pink and the light blue. So I'm gonna bring those colors, and so this is definitely ecru. We'll need it for the greens. Ecru is a great color to mix with green, by the way. If you have sap green, that's going to be our main green tone. I'm going to challenge myself. Maybe I'm not going to use sap green. Maybe I'll use the Hansa yellow. Yeah, I'll do that. Hansa yellow and black. Actually, I'm just going to challenge myself and limit my palette. So instead of bringing green, I'm gonna make my own. Let's see how far that goes. But yeah, so, and a chromatic black. So I'm really happy about this color, chromatic black. And then the gray for sure, the gray for sure. Easy palette, actually. I need to update the picture on the email. So, all right, got it. I'm not going to use the Hansa yellow yet. And since I have like very distinct, let's analyze the color structure of our image. In my case, I can simplify the palette categories into clearly two, just because what I have. In fact, I could even simplify everything into one single color palette. And that's, I'm using observational principles, obviously, because some of the examples that we brought, they have different chromatic directions. Just be careful if you use that, because, you know, yeah, just like a little disclaimer. We encourage you to be rely on observation, and then you can always take that to a different place if you like. And it just depends of your own experience. Obviously, you guys have been painting for such a long time, so feel free as well. So this is a cold color palette. There's nothing warm about it. So that's the most simplified categorization. So because of that, I could use a single color, one single color, a cold color, and do the entire wash with that. It doesn't matter if you use a warm color. In fact, I'm just going to challenge myself also, because sometimes with the wash, which serves as also as an underpainting, we've seen and we've done it in the past. We've created a palette in which the underpainting was warm. In fact, it was red or orange. I don't know. I'm not gonna just be too creative here, but this would be interesting. All right, so I'm gonna decide that I'm gonna do the underpainting with burnt sienna instead, just to spice things up, I guess. First, I thought I was gonna do a combination of a green made with yellow ochre and black in order to wash all the greens, and then use the light blue that we have to just block out essentially the background. Then I thought, I'm just gonna simplify this and pick one cold note. And my first take was to go for gray, even though it's not cold because it's super neutral, but it would be a really safe and solid and risk-free way of tackling the wash using gray. And in addition to that, the gray itself, because it's so neutral, it would already give us such wide room to create different values and um, tints and tones with the colors that we would choose afterward. So that's a good color as well. But what I'm going to do instead is I'm just going to do the opposite. I'm going to pick a really warm color for the wash. The reason why people do that, it's because having an underpainting with warm tones make the greens much more visible, I guess, or vibrant. With oil, it depends because the wash is just going to be wet, but I'm just gonna give it a try. And never mind. Let's just like stop the nonsense, I guess. Oh, by the way, so we've been obsessed with materials. We're trying to, on our 4th anniversary, we're trying to shed some skin and be more, even more. Not like we were never. I don't know how to do that grammatically correctly, or we want to be more environmentally conscious than we've been in the past. And we're studying a lot of materials, and we are making changes. We're switching. We are finishing our tubes and bringing other brands that are less toxic, much less risk of toxicity. Not on us, because oil paint is not necessarily toxic. We've learned this. The reason why people think it's toxic, because materials in oil paint before modern times were toxic: lead, mercury, and stuff like that. So contemporary or modern oil paint production doesn't contain the toxic materials. In addition to that, the pigments are bound with linseed oil or other binding materials, so they're not in the air. They don't create fumes. Number one, they're not sprayed. They're not vaporized or anything like that. So toxicity, it's really hard with contemporary modern oils. Solvent is a different story, but we're not going to go there. We're just going to explain this another time. But why did we say that? Oh, yes, I remember. So one of the benefits, by the way, we were just talking about trying to find a replacement for cotton paper that would be a little bit more environmentally friendly than what it is and cost less carbon footprint. So cotton, it's not an ideal material. And in that sense, even as a fabric, it's better to use bamboo and what's the other plant that it's not a tree that grows super fast and it doesn't, I don't know. It's okay, it'll come up, but it's a very hippie fabric. I hate to say that.
Is it hemp?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. I wouldn't have gotten it if you hadn't said hippie material. Thank you.
Well, it's coming back super strong because speaking of sheets and bed sets, so now bamboo and hemp are coming back strong, and other plants. Anyhow, I'm going on a tangent here, so far away. So another benefit of the cotton, although we're trying to find a different material, is the fact that cotton paper absorbs all the binders and the solvents when we paint, and it only leaves the actual oil paint on top. So we never learned this or read this about cotton paper. One of the reasons why it's so great for oil, it's because the level of observancy that it has, it's not too uncomfortable like painting on paper, which is really bad or very uncomfortable. It's the fact that it absorbs all the fillers from the paint, the oil, the solvents, the mediums, the gall kits, everything that we mix in with the oil paint in order to paint. The paper sucks it in and only the color remains on top. So it's an excellent, excellent surface for oil painting, not just because of other reasons, but because of that separation of solvents and mediums and liquids and stuff and oil paint. All right, so let me just, I said burnt sienna, and I'm gonna do darker to lighter. So we're using the solvent, darker, and a little bit of solvent. So we are learning a lot about solvents and how some people are not using solvents for oil painting. They're just going towards a very, very traditional approach to painting. But we're using solvents for many reasons. And one of them, it's because it facilitates the application of a wash. If you notice, the only time we use solvents to paint is when we wash the surface. We don't use solvents to paint after we do the wash. We only use solvents to clean the brush in between, but we switch from solvent to medium the minute that we finish our, our staining layer. Anyhow, so that is what's happening right now. We've also changing solvents. We're trying different things. On our recent blog post, we just put a solvent that it's environmentally friendly and also doesn't damage your inner organs. So the Gamsol, it's a low toxicity solvent, but it's still not toxic. So yeah, we'll talk more about that, but I'm just gonna bring some of this. I'm doing the wash and I'm using the burnt sienna. Yeah, I think that's good. It's gonna be an interesting, we'll see what happens. An interesting take. One single color, you know, I'm not gonna separate or anything like that. I'm just using one single color. And it doesn't matter how you do this. You could just use different colors at this stage. You could just actually start separating and do a wash with sky and do another wash with the greens. And so don't feel like what we're doing with our process, it's what you should be doing on your end. This is not like a formula that you follow every single time. We just wanted to try something different. And but yeah, if you have sap green, just go for it. Be careful because it could be very pigmented and it could cause problems, because once you reach the full saturation of the sap green out of the tube, then it's hard to manipulate or mold it. So we don't recommend it. It's better to create a neutral green. What better way to create a neutral green than with the neutrals? The best way to do a neutral sap green, try using yellow ochre and chromatic black if you have it. Yellow and black make amazing greens, actually. You don't even have to use blue. So I think that's, yeah, that was an easy wash. Done. So, all right. finished with the wash. You know, we always are careful to say that paintings are never finished, but we can achieve completion of stages when we paint. So I am done with the wash and the wash is finished. All right, so next step. Just gonna start with my first notes, and I'm gonna bring other brushes, medium and small brushes already. Yeah, I'm just gonna use the medium brush. So now, oh, by the way, staining, think color fields, open spaces of color, and yeah, so don't worry about shapes, don't worry about hard edges. This is mostly about the painting surface and also sealing, priming the painting surface and sealing the charcoal, essentially. I'm gonna use the medium brush, and I'm gonna start with first notes. And first notes, we associate first notes with color blocking. Color blocking, this is the area or the stage in which I am going to do several things. Number one, I'm gonna study the color of the subjects. And yeah, and this would be the beginning of the creation of the color palette that's gonna be used for this particular painting. No two color palettes are the same, period. So every single color palette that we make, it's completely original, unique, and cannot be replicated. We use the same staple colors. The raw material is one thing, and that is always the same. But the thing is that we have to process the raw materials into a color palette that's going to be our palette of choice for this specific subject. The second thing that happens with color blocking is that we use opacity in order to start creating shapes. So we're gonna study the edges of things. We're gonna start studying the edges of things, and then yeah, started to shape up some of those focal points. So because green and botanical green is such, I'm already seeing that both trees have different greens. I mean, that's something that it didn't even cross my mind. That's the beauty of painting. If you want to see something for what it truly is, paint it, because only by observing, slowing down and observing it, you're going to actually see exactly what it is that you're seeing. And I have to step out later and find out if truly these two cypress trees have different color, because they do like different greens. All right, this is getting like really full, but I'm just gonna use my painting hack and then study the greens. And first, I'm gonna try to keep my palette like super narrow and bring just yellow and chromatic black and see what happens. Because I really want to create a green that's not out of the tube. Just, I don't know, just for the sake of it. All right, so this is a green. Stop. Oh my gosh. I thought this was like ridiculous. The green was absolutely ridiculous. I'm actually getting close. Whoa. I love this kind of like alchemy. It's just so fascinating. I mean, I hated chemistry in school. You have no idea. It was my least favorite subject. I liked everything. I liked absolutely everything, but chemistry was such a pain. You know, when you think chemistry, you think mixing stuff and whatever. But in high school, chemistry was all formulas. You know, it's like it wasn't. It should have been called. It should not have been called chemistry. Let's put it this way. So this feels like true chemistry to me, like alchemy and mixing and finding that things are different. And I'm realizing that using yellow, ochre, and black, I thought I was gonna need like something much more sophisticated. I'm actually gonna get there. So funny. I'm gonna get to that cypress green. So amazing. I would have never thought that this would have been possible. I'm making green without using green. I mean, seriously. I love it. A little bit more yellow ochre. Even without blue. I'm making green without blue. Ugh. Okay, I may need some, actually, I may need some blue. So I'm gonna use, because I don't have the light blue, and I feel like I need to perhaps even tone it down because it's getting a little bit too um, tarnished. So let me see what happens if this is why on first notes, study the color, why it's so important. Because otherwise we're gonna start visualizing, even though we have this image in front of us. Absolutely. I am blown away right now. I'm blown away right now. I look at the palette. I'm just gonna tilt it. And this is what I created. And to my eyes, it doesn't look green at all. It just looks like weird. I don't know. But comparing it with the photograph, it's actually, yeah. I'm just, this is like so nuts. All right, so here it goes. This is a medium color. So what I'm gonna do, this is perhaps not the way to do this. It's not the way to do this. All right, because it's always good to go in oil from darker to lighter. So this was a good medium tone. Let me see if I can just do now a darker version of that. And I'm gonna have to here interpret things because the camera, the iPhones, I mean, suck in general. But taking pictures, there, nothing has been really improved, So I'm gonna see if I can just darken this color, make a darker version of the color with the same tones. Yeah, it needs to be a little darker, so it's gonna be a little bit more complicated, maybe. No, it's not bad, actually. It's not bad. Oh my gosh, yeah, amazing, amazing. Like truly, I'm just, I'm amazed right now. Sorry, I just can't believe that this is happening. But yeah, and it is green. It doesn't look green on the palette. Wow. So I'm just using, for the lighter version, I used a little bit of ecru, a little bit of white. So, but the core mixture is, on my case, just yellow ochre and chromatic black, and that's it. So I'm gonna do darker to lighter. So first I'm color blocking the darker areas. So remember, color blocking and also molding the shape. So there's a lot of there are a lot of irregular elements on that shape. So I just want to make sure that nothing is super stylized, just because, at least in my opinion, one of the things that I love about any botanical element is that the irregularities of any growth speak of the history of that shape. So I think making things very stylized or slippery conceptually removes this idea of history. But that's in my head, obviously. My suggestion would be stick with the irregularities first. Practice and realize how many things, how different things are. And then you can always later create more of an abstraction of it, or play more with stylized things. Oh my gosh, it's ridiculous. Okay, it's green. I just can't deal. I mean, this was all because we did a tutorial of yellows, and we tried to study yellows and find a better alternative to cadmiums. One of the main things we're going to do to replace colors on our palette. It's to phase out any cadmium and cobalt based paint. Again, those are not toxic to us. Even the way the pigment is ground, cobalt and cadmium, it's non-soluble and the particles are too large to go through our skin. That wasn't the case when people did oil painting by grinding the pigments for a long time in the past. The particles, number one, the cadmium was up in the air because they were grinding. And then also the particles were so small that they did go through the skin. But in modern paint production, that's not the case. Regardless, we learned that these metals are terrible for the environment. Terrible, terrible. They poison the water and they kill everything living in it. So, I mean, of course, we're not flushing this on the toilet, but and we're not dumping the pallets. But if you find yourself in a position where you're about to, just stop for a second and know that maybe the paint is not toxic to us, but it's just devastating for aquatic ecosystems. So don't. Even if no one's watching you, we will be watching you. Just take it to a hazardous disposal center, or just save it in a jar. Okay, I'm gonna do the other side. And I'm doing first notes, color blocking, darker to lighter. Study the color in each of our palettes. The green we achieve will be different. Feel free to do anything you'd like, but we suggest you take the opportunity here to simplify. Maybe just do green out of other colors to really understand how wired our brains are in regards to green color, and how actually it feels so good to pull the wires apart and rewire them in a different way. Okay, so the darker green, it's a little bit different than on the photograph, just because I know that the shadows are more colored than the iPhone. Okay, so yeah, I think that's gonna be all right. This is a different story. This screen right here has tons of yellow, so there's no way I can do this. But I'm gonna give it a try. I'm gonna try to resist squeezing green as much as possible, just because I want to find out ways to go from point A to point B, A being raw material, B being green, without using green paint. Okay, maybe what I'll do is just go back to the medium tones, and I'm just gonna block those out. And maybe I'll use I'll use medium brush. And the formula here, it's just gonna change a little bit. So once I get an idea of the formula that I'm gonna use for a color, I don't obsess about it. I just know that there's this mixture of different colors that creates a green. But when I make it again, I just, I'm a little bit careless about it. I know that it has this, this, and this. So I don't measure anything. Sometimes it comes out a little darker. Sometimes it comes out a little lighter. But I think that helps the overall interest on the surface. So I'm a little bit, this seems impossible. Anyhow, well, I'm gonna just go through this and see during the second notes, I may have to bring some green, because that's not, yeah, it doesn't look like the same color, but I don't know. it's good because it's first notes. So we're studying the color, and when we go to second notes, we can tweak that spectrum. The hue could be slightly different. And I think that's going to happen for sure. But for now, these being first notes, it's good enough that we realized that the green is much more desaturated, and I can do it with 2 neutrals, yellow ochre and black, not even primaries. There's no blue here. All right, it's kind of like building up. I think that's good, just building it up. And I use like 2 tones here. Usually a proper first note would be painting the entire thing with one single value. But I feel like this has such dark contrast that what I did was break it down into 2 shades. All right, I don't want to do this, but look at me, I'm just doing it. I'm just gonna check the periwinkle. Yeah, it's very light. No, I'm glad I'm doing it because, you know, I would have used that color and it's very light. So I'm glad I'm studying this. Can I use periwinkle and chromatic black? Let me see. Whoa, no, that is just terrible. Super dark. I'm gonna do another sample, color sample. Yeah, no. No, 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 no. Let me see. Well, okay, so for sure I'm gonna need blue here because it's not enough with the radiant blue that I have. But I think for now, it's too neutral. It has a little bit more of a purple tone. This, believe it or not, when we look at the sky, we think, oh, it's blue. There's so much purple in that blue, so much purple. But for now, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna keep it within limited range. And I'm gonna go ahead and do this blue with a little bit of chromatic black. Yeah, I think that makes me happy. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm not gonna use any alizarin crimson yet, or any cobalt or ultramarine or Prussian. I have to decide. But for now, I'm just gonna stick with the palette that I've got and continue doing my first notes. So this is the first note of the sky. Yeah, I think that's good. Yeah. I'm gonna try not to overthink. You know, this idea, gosh, as if it's not enough to deal with all these labels that we have to deal every single day. So apparently there is such a thing as being an overthinker. Okay, I didn't know that, but watching some, which I shouldn't, some videos and, you know, some listicles, which rhymes with almost like testicles, but it doesn't mean anything like that. Listicles are articles that contain lists, the lowest form of journalism you can imagine. It's just coming up with a list of things, and then yeah, you call that an article. And some people, instead of calling them articles, they call them listicles. They're easy to read. If you don't want to go into whatever it's inside of that list, then you just look at the dots, and then you can get us. I mean, it's just bad. In some centuries from now, if we still exist as a species, we'll probably talk with sounds because it's just terrible. Sorry. So yeah, in a listicle, the listicle was about how do you deal with an overthinker? So it was like, okay. And there were so many things, you know, like you have to reassure an overthinker that you're not going to leave them. You have to, I mean, there were some very interesting things. And then, of course, at the end of these listicles, you end up thinking that you are the subject of the article. It doesn't matter what the listicle is about. You're always the subject. You know, they write it in a way that you are, might as well just check you in a hospital because you're suffering from that. Anyhow, this whole diatribe about this, I feel like as artists, we are intrinsically overthinkers. That's it. There's no escape, whatever that means. We overthink our process. We overthink the results way too much. I forgot the specifics of the listicle, and that's one of the things about this bad forms of modern journalism. You read them, nothing sticks in your brain. You already know that you have a defect, and then you can't even remember what are the things that the listicle said about avoiding that. And yeah, that's it. But I bring this up because I think it's important somehow not to overthink what this looks like at this stage, because I feel like that's one of the traps that we face all the time. We look at our sketch, we look at our wash, and we're like, oh my gosh, this looks terrible. So yeah, I almost fell into that stage, but no, I'm just gonna continue, and we just have to move forward. I'm liking this blue. It's a big paper, so I'm just gonna take my time. Jen, just for the sake of it, I don't know if you can find that an article that says how to be with an overthinker. Specifically,
with one.
I'm sorry?
How to be with one? That's what it's called?
How to be with an overthinker. Yeah. And it was sort of like in a romantic relationship, how to love an overthinker. Yes.
Oh,
I think that was it.
Okay, I have to tell you that I so loved everything you just said that I feel like you need to do like a TED talk on it or something, because you couldn't be more right on everything you said. Immediately we're the subject of it. We can't remember a damn thing, but we remember that we're wrong, that we're false. And we want to tell people about it, but then we feel silly because we're like, I don't remember what it said, but it was really important.
Oh my gosh, it's just terrible.
And I'm a mess.
Yeah. That's the
Right.
bottom line. We're a mess. Yeah, well, this one is it's gonna hit home, you know. How to love an overthinker.
Okay, I think I have it.
It's terrible. It's exhausting to go through the list, actually.
Yeah. Okay.
Because it's like,
Hey, believe it or not, there's more than one. So I'm not sure which one you read.
I don't even know. It's okay. They're all bad.
There's one. Yeah, there's one that says "In love with an overthinker. You need to know."
Oh my gosh! Please. The worst.
Okay.
The worst part is after reading this, I thought I was the overthinker and the one that had to do the work at the same time.
Yes. Okay, I'm sweating. I'm laughing so hard. The title is "In Love with an Overthinker. You need to know these 17 things."
Oh my gosh. Terrible.
No wonder. Oh my gosh. And then it's called a life hack.
What?
They called it a life hack. Somehow still.
Jesus, 17. I mean,
oh my gosh.
That's terrible. All right, give us a preview. Give us like a few that stand out.
Okay. So there's another one too. Okay, so there's that one, and then there's another one that's, I think, focused more on women.
By the way, I mean, add another compounding layer.
I don't even know.
You can change the word overthinker for the word artist, and it just works exactly the same.
No.
So you give it a try.
Well, I love it. Okay, so there's another article called herway.net. This is how you love an overthinker. And obviously this is much more towards the ladies, but let's do the 17 thing
Yeah,
because that sounds just
that's masochism 101, seriously.
okay. So there's one written by a man, and that's the 17 things, and there's one written by a woman. And I'm so interested to see the difference between them.
Who knows? Yeah, that would be an interesting.
Ugh. Oh man, I mean they're dumb. Here's what you need to know if you're in love with an overthinker. It's not their fault. Number one. This is from the man.
Well, surprise.
Number one. Basically, don't hate them. It's not their fault. Oh my god.
Oh my gosh.
Basically it says if you are going to love someone who is an artist, let's just do it.
Yeah.
You need to be on board with their personality and accept that they will overanalyze everything in life. Oh my god. I mean, this is silly. You could literally say this for anything. You need to be compassionate. You need to be good at communicating.
Yeah,
you could
that's
any relationship.
yeah. I mean, that's
To
why
be
you
confident.
Oh. Seriously. All right. In the meantime, I'm just gonna tell you guys that I'm gonna have to bring the Hansa yellow because these greens are not happening. This yellow ochre, it just reached its limited capacity. I cannot do a bright yellow with ochre. I just use like oh, I have Naples yellow. Let me just see. I'm gonna put some Naples yellow. But yeah, I just need to bring a different yellow. Hansa yellow. Hansa yellow. All right. Yeah. So Jen, what's any other things that stand out?
Well, this is a good one. Number 5. Overthinking / being an artist doesn't make them crazy.
Oh my gosh. Doesn't make them crazy.
Right.
Yeah, obviously that's not, yeah. Okay, let me just check this yellow right here. Okay. Hansa yellow and chromatic black. That's it. That's gonna be the second step. I'm not bringing out the greens yet. If you don't have Hansa yellow, try cadmium yellow. Obviously, if you have cadmium yellow light, it's probably better. But yeah, I'm still doing the first notes. So I just finished with sky. I'm really happy about the sky. I think that's a good base, and I'll just block, color block the Asian pear tree with Hansa yellow, some chromatic black, and I'm adding some white to it to get more of that avocado green that's so gorgeous. More Hansa yellow. Okay. All right, so give us a couple more that stand out. Jen.
I'm reading the conclusion.
Okay.
And it says, simply put, men want to be your hero, not necessarily an action hero like Thor, but he does want to step up to the plate for the woman in his life and be appreciated for his efforts.
Okay, that is a really out of the trash listicle. Wow. Seriously.
Let's go to the female one and see if it's any better.
Okay. Yeah.
It kind of seems similar, I gotta be honest with you. Like the first one is basically like they can't help it. It's essentially like saying.
So crazy.
She says, there's so many ads. It's hard to tell what's the
It's just,
ad
yeah,
and what's the listicle.
oh my gosh, that's the state of journalism these days. Yeah. So in the meantime, what I'm doing is I'm using for the building, I'm using gray and raw umber to create a shaded area. So it's not just gray, a little bit of raw umber. And then I used gray as well, raw umber, and a little bit of burnt sienna for the tiles. So I think, yeah, that's the, and I'm deciding not to bring the rubber tree peeking out. Okay, I feel like it's already strong with the focal point, with the focal points. I feel like that would be too distracting, and then it would just compete too much with this shape. So yeah, I'm glad that I just, but if you notice this, it's just a big block, a color block, and this defines exactly what first notes are. Color blocks that have a similar even hue, value-wise, and also temperature-wise. So I'm finished with my first notes overall. So yeah, Jen, anything particular? I have to find mine, but because it was like really strong, you know, it was really strong.
Yeah,
And I
I
forgot.
bet this one's better. This is just, it's so intense. Like,
Intense.
yeah. Okay, hold on.
Um, in the meantime, okay, so I'm gonna transition from first notes to second notes. And I think it's important here to understand what are the expectations, because there's a very important creative direction that we have to take right now. It's crucial. It's super important, because if we don't put it on the table, or kind of like put all the cards on the table and pick the one we want, we're going to get overwhelmed by the amount of detail that we will have to work on. So first off, or first of all, I'm going to define second notes. So um, staining was color fields. First notes was color blocking. Second notes is pixelation. So we're gonna now start working on texture perhaps and details. Second notes is when we widen the spectrum of color within the same color palette that we created, but this time we're gonna be a little bit more observant about temperature and about value. So I think those are the main characteristics about second notes. Smaller brush strokes, so it's not color block, but it's kind of like pixelation, widening the color spectrum. So within the same color, I have a very simple color palette on here. It's just very simple. You can see all the color samples that I've done for the sky, for the Asian pear tree, for the darker cypress, the lighter cypress, and then these two were for the building. So it's just very simplified, and there's nothing um, extra. So with second notes, I'm going to go to this color palette, and then perhaps I'm going to start maybe on the darker area of the cypress. I'm going to study this color and find out if I can create variations within this color. I'm not going to do anything new or bring a new color in here. I'm just going to play with this color and try to stretch the spectrum so I can get variations. And the thing that's very crucial is the fact that we have to decide the focal point that we're going to choose first. And that determines the course of our second notes. So look at the image, find out where the focal points. Obviously, I feel like this will be a little bit clearer because we're painting a portrait of a tree. So at least the main focus on this painting will be the cypress trees. So I know that that's the main focus. So I'm going to start with those. And it seems too easy, but it just determined the course of the painting, because if you choose something different, that may not be the focal point, you're going to get engaged with an area that it's not going to be the main focal point, and then you're not going to have time to do the actual thing that you want to feature. So deciding which area you want to start working on with second notes gives you an advantage, not only to enhance that idea of main focal point, but also it makes everything else fall into place. The background will be maybe the second thing that I'm going to work on, just because I want to close the gaps. Maybe this will be a third in line in regards to what to work on. But it's important that you go about which area you're going to tackle first. That area is not random. I'm going to do this because I like it, or this is in the middle. That first second notes area will determine the importance of that focal point, and it will give you so much more advantage time-wise compared to other parts of the painting that will be in different positions on that priority list, I guess. Okay, so I'm going to use also a small brush. And here, my gosh, I feel like obviously this is not the same green, but let me just bring the chromatic. I want to bring the chromatic and the yellow ochre. And perhaps what I'll do, chromatic and yellow ochre, and maybe a little bit of the Hansa yellow. I think that's the key. I think that's the key. So I stayed within the same color, which was yellow ochre and chromatic black. But in order to create a variation of it, I brought in some Hansa yellow. And I think that does it. I think that does it. Let me just see.
Leo, I found one really great quote with all of this.
Okay,
it
tell
says,
us.
The sharpest minds often ruin their lives by overthinking the next step, while the dull win the race with eyes closed.
Ooh, yeah, that is helpful.
I know.
That's helpful.
Right?
Yeah.
I thought that was really
That's helpful. Yeah. Yeah, sometimes we are, I mean, that's really heavy, but we are our worst enemies. Thinking of artists, being artists, because we overthink things too much. Okay, so I'm just applying this darker note, and I don't want to make it super dark. I'm going over, by the way, what I'm doing is I'm going over what I did. And this time, oh, this reminds me to the Christmas tree in the garbage can series. We did a tree also. That was really interesting. So I'm just working on this area and then bringing some Hansa yellow and some yellow ochre. So 2 variations of that yellow. And I feel like that gives a little bit more of an interest here. And I don't want to make it super dark just because I know that it's going to look more like a photograph. There's nothing wrong about that, but I just feel like it's better to. Yeah, at the same time, since I have 2, I feel like it's important to work on the same aspect on both, because otherwise I'll have one finished and then the other one is just gonna feel so far away from. Okay, so yesterday we were just talking, last night during studio time, we were talking about texture and how when we see something that has texture, as viewers, the first thing that comes to us is the texture. As painters, that should be precisely the last thing that we should consider. So let me just try to rephrase or even repeat. when you observe something with texture, try to detach the actual effect of the texture from things that precede that effect. The idea of volume, the light direction, the temperature, variations in value, all those things are more important to do first than the texture. We do the opposite instead. We see texture, it comes first, and then we try to paint it, and we forget that that texture is on top of something. It's the effect that we receive on a form that exists, that has a space, a volume. Yeah, so I think that's what I'm trying to do with this, with trees. In fact, I was just putting the example of if you give like someone, let me just try to be positive here and say that sometimes I've seen, or I've done in the past a tree by just doing like a pointillistic, thing. Okay, trees are leaves, it's green. Let me get the green out, and I'm just gonna do this. The paper or the surface is dry. There's nothing there, blank. And the first thing we do is texture. Yeah. I'm not saying that's wrong, but what I'm saying is that practice the opposite first, and then you decide if that's what you want to do or not. Because, who says that's wrong? This is precisely what Yayoi Kusama does, or has always done in her paintings. She paints the dots. For her, dots are precisely what defines a living thing. And she was self-taught, right? I think she was self-taught. I'm now not sure if she was or not, but so yeah, you can see someone like her doing precisely what I just explained, and I love her work. But my point is that understand what happens when you do that. What are the limitations? Practice the opposite. Paint the actual shape without texture. That's the key. It happens with water, with hair, and with trees. We start painting strands before we build the idea of volume. We start doing waves before we actually paint the perspective of things, or how the light reflects. It happens in everything that has texture. We want to paint it first, and we forget that there's a structure there. There's an architecture that holds the texture. No, we just say, no, that's not important. I don't see that. I just want to do different kinds of greens. Not yet. Not yet. We'll get to the dots. The dots are the icing on this cake. They're at the end of this. Build a structure. Take care of the edges. Think in terms of like natural architecture. What supports this? What's visible? What's not visible? And then we'll get to this texture thing later. Okay, so this is, I'm doing a few darker notes here. And again, I'm just create more paint. I just finished the puddle. So I'm just gonna bring yellow ochre, Hansa yellow, and chromatic black. And see how that, yeah, I think that's pretty good. I think that's a good dark. And I'm doing second notes. So I'm stretching the spectrum of hues by sticking with the main color that I did during first notes, and then just bringing some variations. The variation here is some Hansa yellow. Okay, I'm just also expanding. So slowly, I'm expanding some areas that have a little bit of a darker area. So I'm widening the spectrum of values right now. So it's not just two sides. So right now on both cypress trees, I am bringing some slightly darker shadows, not as dark as before in other parts in order to sort of like create, I think that's good, a little bit more the idea of a surface that has clumps or that it's not even. It's just like, yeah, it just has like clumps, I think. Okay, so I think I'm gonna move to the next step because I feel like before I start adding the highlights, I wanna work on the edges because the edges are extremely important. If you do like a tree, more like a regular tree, I guess, or a tree that actually shows the branches, know this, and that I'm gonna try to list the things that become habits when we're kids and they become permanent. Before I talked about trunk and branches, no parallel lines, irregularity on the trunk. The trunk is not a post. The branches follow an amazing rhythmic um, uh, transition from thicker to thinner so they can expand by the means of being lighter as they stretch out from the trunk. Let's talk about the canopy. The density in the leaves is more important than the leaves and the color. Generally speaking, things are denser in the core of the tree or the canopy of the tree. And as they expand, I'm talking about foliage, there is lessening of the density of the botanical aspect. So, and that means that the background may be more see-through in certain areas. What we tend to do is to block it completely out. So I think that is something that we need to study and see if that happens. So make it less dense where it is less dense, and make it more dense where you see that there's more density. That alone will create a sense of harmony, and it will make the canopy a little bit less heavy. In addition to that, think of a canopy the same way that you would think of a cloud. So clouds are not just like cardboard pieces that are flat. Clouds are gas compounds or forms. They're gases. I don't know if that's a word or not, but gaseous. So think of a canopy in the same terms, as a form that it has a volume all around it. Part of the canopy we see, but the other part that we don't see also has volume. We're not going to paint that, obviously, but just have it in mind, because based on the light direction, and this is when things become more important, some of the areas of that volume will be slightly lighter or will reflect some light. And it's precisely those areas that will create the idea of a form. If you don't take care of those growths on a canopy, and you'll have to simplify and group together a bunch of leaves into a growth. If you don't take care of that sort of like shapes that form the canopy, everything will be flat, and immediately the perspective will be flattened. There will be no illusion of that being a large, voluminous, gases like, I'm gonna stop. So yeah, density, the idea of volume, it's important. Percolating light, see-through elements, bring the background in. And depending on the size of the leaves, sometimes the leaves on the edges, they feel almost disengaged from the tree. So we have this obsession that every single leaf has to be attached, when visually, some of them are almost like splitting away from the actual canopy. So exaggerate that effect, make some of the edges of the tree have more of a movement than other parts of the edge of the tree. Because if everything falls into a really hard silhouette, you'll create such sense of heaviness on the area of the tree that precisely it's the lightest. So the idea is to enhance or represent or give an idea of a sense of very light weight, very light weight on the edges of the canopy. Very light. How? Maybe using a softer edge, more diffused. Maybe smudging some of those areas so they don't feel so heavy. Painting leaves that are not completely attached to the tree. These are like a couple of examples of how to make the edges of a tree less heavy. All right, so I think that's all I've got in regards to the next stage, which is canopy wise. And I haven't even talked about texture, because I think that's at the end of it. All these things that I'm trying to list are regarding the idea of a canopy. Okay, so just gonna, and in that sense, what I'm gonna do, instead of like working on the highlights, I'm gonna work on the edge. So the next thing that I'm gonna paint is gonna be the blue right next to the edge, because it is precisely there that I can just create more of an illusion of foliage. So I'm not gonna paint the leaves. I'm gonna paint the separation between the canopy and the sky. Because one of the things that I wish I was told when I was much younger, although I'm very naive, because I think that's not precisely the first thing that comes to mind when painting a tree, is the fact that it is the background, the thing that defines the tree. So when we paint trees, we are obsessed about color, leaves, trunk, and we think the background is just an accessory. Well, no, the background is the thing that actually draws the shape of the tree, the thing that actually gives context, the space in which the tree can exist, the idea of how the density may work on a canopy. So it is so crucial, so important, as important as the actual tree canopy. So I'm going to switch or move from the darker shadows to the actual background, especially along the line, because I know that that's going to define my tree. And on that note, I'm going to bring the Ziploc of blues and the Ziploc of reds. How about that? Blues and reds. Because as we know, as artists, whoopsie, we know the sky is not blue. The sky is a shade of purple. It looks blue to us, but it's not really blue. There is so much warmth in the sky. So perhaps I'm gonna have to bring here the weaponry. I'm gonna bring some cerulean. Okay, here we go, cerulean. Okay, I'll bring some cerulean. So notice that I'm bringing color an hour and 40 minutes in the session. And I'm gonna bring, and it's not green. I'm painting trees, and the color that I'm bringing is not green. Alizarin crimson. I need to tackle the shade of purple that's going to be on the sky. I really want to study that and see what I've got. So I'm going to get some cerulean. And then some alizarin, a very tiny bit of alizarin, because alizarin, it's a chemical compound, so it takes over the mixture. Oh, so beautiful. In fact, again, one of those alchemy moments. You think that it's too purple, and then you put it on, and it's not purple enough. It's just so bonkers, seriously. So I needed to put a little bit more alizarin crimson. Okay, good. So this is my shade of purple. So now that I've got it, it looks pretty purple on the paper. Just gonna go outside and try to shave. And make sure that I close the gap, but I also bring irregularities. I think the word here, to create irregularities, is so important. I need to contort that edge. I need to make sure that it's almost feels like I had like a sculpting wire that I would crumble up, and then I would try to straighten. It would be all imperfect. It could not be straight. So that's what I'm trying to do. It's just trying to really break up any regular stroke. The more irregular, the more natural. So this is, yep, I think that's working. So again, I'm gonna do the mixture again, cerulean, alizarin, and some periwinkle or radiant blue, sorry. And this one, it's a little bit more purple, but that's okay. I'm just gonna go in and try to shave and create as many irregularities as possible. And I have to be careful. By the nature of how we apply the strokes, we make very regular shapes, just because, you know, the length of the stroke, if it's too long, will create a line. So I'm practicing almost like a jittery brush stroke. So really nervous, trembling, just because I don't want the strokes to be so straight that they create regular areas. Okay, so this is I did it on the right of this painting or this tree. And then what I'll do made such a huge difference with a tiny brush. I'm just gonna go in with a really tiny brush and create almost like a few dots that feel separating from the actual cypress tree. Just want to mess or mince or chop up this irregularity a little bit more. And at the same time, with that same tiny brush, I'm going to bring some of the sky and tear up that edge from the outside in. So it looks much more, much grainier. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's working really well. This needs to be shaved. Okay. All right. Oh, I'm so happy about this stage, you know, just kind of like closing the gap, and look at how regular one side is. And by just like chopping, shaving in, and then creating this irregular area, even with your finger or with your rack, you can also smudge certain spots. Yeah, so it just feels a little bit less regular. Yeah. Okay, so the next thing that I should do is do the same on this other side, but I feel like I want to take some time to do more second notes on this other area. So in the next like 20 minutes, because we're gonna have like 5 minutes after the second hour, because we started a little bit later. So I'm gonna do a study on the lighter values right here, especially in this area, which is where the sun hits. And then after that, I'm gonna do the same thing with the shade of purple, light purple on the edge, and see how further I can push this cypress tree with second notes. So let's go for it. This is gonna be crucial because I wanna see if I can get a lighter shade of green that's a little bit more sophisticated, or I don't know, I just feel like that is not working anymore. This kind of like lighter green doesn't feel like it's, let me just bring it up. So this was the color sample, which was yellow ochre, a little bit of like chromatic black, some ecru. I think that was it. Maybe some white. Yeah, that was the, I'm just making the color again that I used. Perfect. That's the color that I used. Okay, so I realized that that color has a lot of yellow, a lot of yellow. So now I see that I need to tone it down. It's more like minty green. Ha, okay. Can I tone down this? Let me see if I can tone down this with the colors that I have, because this is almost like a viridian green. It's very sagey. Okay, I'm gonna try something, a different color sample. I'm gonna do Hansa yellow. I'm gonna do chromatic black a little bit, and maybe some white. I get the avocado green, and I'm gonna try to pull it back with burnt sienna. The warm temperature of the burnt sienna, let me see. No, there's a lot of yellow. Okay. All right, so let's just do something else. I'm gonna bring cerulean blue. I'm trying to avoid bringing some green. Cerulean blue, Hansa yellow to make green. And then I'll bring some white to see if I can make a sagey color here. That is a weird green. No, it's not working out. Let me see a cerulean. More cerulean. Hansa yellow is really strong. Okay, I got some kind of like aqua tone. Whoa, no way. Let me just bring some zinc white, because I feel like this titanium. Okay, maybe some gray. I think like now, ooh, I think that's, okay, okay. Let me see. I'll bring some chromatic black. Okay. Yeah, maybe. I think that could work. All right, I think I'm mixing too many colors here. Okay, I'm getting close. I'm mixing way too many colors, and that is gonna be a formula that I won't be able to. Okay, I got it. Okay, I need to simplify this, because this is the color. I think that's working right now, but I don't have enough, and there are too many colors mixed in. So I'm glad that I'm founding this issue or problem. So if you notice, this is much more on the minty green that actually see it, and it will work really great as a cypress color. But the problem that I have is that it's too many colors involved. I think that it's going to be really complicated to replicate this formula. So I need to find a simplified version of this that doesn't have too much yellow. There's yellow, but not too much. And again, this is just because I want to push myself and do something without green out of a tube. It's just because of that, not for anything else. So I'm going to start with cerulean blue. I'm going to go through different routes. Cerulean blue and yellow ochre. I'm going to go through this route. I'm sorry. And see if that could give me a different green, because the Hansa yellow was too crazy. Okay, I think I got, yeah. All right, got it. Okay, I got it. I think that's very good. Perfect. All right, so I found the formula. And the formula is cerulean and bingo. Cerulean, yellow ochre, and white. Done. So no Hansa yellow. It was too bright. And now that I have this, I can really make a lot of paint because it's a simplified version. I can make a lot of it. And I can really use it to put on top. Okay, I'm so happy right now. Okay, let's do it. So with a small brush and a very pasty, I barely use, first I'm gonna do the highlights that are picking over the dark area. Remember what I said, you know, those growths, that volume, that's what I'm doing right now. Just try to merge or combine, or rather juxtapose. Oh yeah, those elements on top. Okay, I think that's good. I'm not even doing texture yet. I think that's important to mention. This is just the structure of the canopy. I haven't done like texture yet. I just want to again disintegrate a little bit more the shapes so they feel like part of the same. Yeah, and going to the darker areas. Yeah, I think that's not too bad. And at the same time, okay, this is like a lot of work. At the same time, what I'm going to do while I do this, I'm going to bring a lighter version of this, a much lighter version of this, maybe with zinc white also involved, because I really want to bring some of this lighter area on the other side. And that's essentially what I said I was going to do anyhow. Just build that super light area. Yeah, I think so. I need to bring, again, second notes, this is a good idea. Just bringing the pale minty green that I got from cerulean and yellow ochre, and really incorporate that lightness. I have to squint my eyes and see how this goes. Yeah, I think that's okay. I'll bring some lighter note right here. Okay. I'm happy about this green. And then I would say I'm gonna expand this on this side for now because I feel like what's next, it'll be the gap. As I said, I'm just gonna work on this area and then I'll just bring the version of the blue or the sky, which is with purple, on this side to see if I can exaggerate or sort of like define the tree. Yeah, that's the idea. And I said, I'm gonna do cerulean, alizarin, because they said it's pretty purple, and radium blue or periwinkle. Let's go for it. Ooh, it's like really purple, but that's okay. I'm just gonna keep it. There's something interesting about this random color almost. Breaking it as much as I can. Remember this sort of like crunched up wire, and then trying to flatten it, it's going to be impossible. There are all these irregularities. The more irregular, the more natural the form looks. So I'm just bringing that, just shaving it in, making sure the strokes are short, because if we make like longer strokes, they're going to show straight lines. Okay, so whoopsie, I think that is just a little bit, yeah. I'm gonna bring some of the purple on the other side, just because I think continuation is important. I may have to do this at a later time to kind of like match from both sides. Okay, so same thing with a small brush. What I'm gonna do with a small brush is perhaps this green right here. And I'm gonna bring some of the green out, almost detached. And some of it is really dark, so I'm just gonna bring a few darker notes. Yeah, I can see it now. Some of these growths have some darker areas. Yeah. And then at the same time, some of the blue that I created just going inside. This, for example, as irregular as I'm trying to make it, it feels too aligned. There's too much of a regular slope, and it doesn't happen like that. So I just need to bring some of the blue and pierce, break this, because create a belly, because it's getting too, I think that's good. It's getting too much of an alignment. Yeah, I think that's okay. I'm gonna bring some green and try to break it up. Yeah. Okay. All right, so I think that is good. And then what? So I'm just gonna bring a tiny brush. And I feel like right now with a tiny brush, what I wanna do is just build some texture. And how do I do that? So with just like small brush strokes, and at the same time, I need to just make some of the darker paint. So I feel like I have to bring a combination of both darker and lighter to start creating more of a blending of the highlight and the shadows within that range. So, okay, the darker was with yellow ochre. I have the sample, the chromatic black. I think that was good. And some Hansa yellow just to create that color. Okay, I think that's good. And I have enough paint. So notice that I'm just using variations. I remember some of the combinations of colors. And this is gonna be a little bit tricky because I already have light paint underneath. So to paint darker notes on top, it's just gonna be a little tricky. But I'm just gonna go for it and see how far I can take it. Really tiny brush strokes. So I'm just trying, if you notice, I'm just trying to break up some of these regular forms. This is definitely darker. And create more variations right here. Yeah. So, okay. A little bit of a darker area. And bring some darker notes also on this other side. My gosh, I just feel like this would be like the beginning of the next chapter. So I'm trying to let me sort of like recap and see how I would tackle this before we kind of like conclude the session. We have like 5 more minutes, but I'm just going to talk about what kind of direction I see with this. Because obviously I just worked on this. Ideally, what I should have done is, as I was applying stages on this shape, I should have applied stages, the same stages on this one, because it's just going to be much harder to catch up or much harder to kind of like match the stages when I have so many steps that I haven't done on this tree. So first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to try to bring the edge of the shade of purple and then build the values. Also create irregular edges, build the highlights, create irregular edges. So I have a good stage of these two cypresses. And then density on this tree, so darker inside, and bring some of the branches, create more transparency on the edge, because right now this shape, it just feels very blocking out. So I have to bring some of the colors right here. So this would be the next step. I think this is a major step because I have to find a different way of applying this that's different from the cypress tree. I'm so happy that this is in the picture, just because it's going to show a variation not only of color, but also of density on the edges. And I think that's going to be really important. But at the same time, and then I can continue the background with this shade of purple, and I think that's going to be good. The house needs a little bit of TLC, but that's not going to be a very strong focal point. But what I'm excited about is the fact that I feel like on the next session, Monday night, most likely, I have an opportunity to weave. I think that would be the word, weave more texture on top of what I've got, because this is clearly, I feel personally, it's not enough. I feel like I need to add more texture. And the way I'm going to do it, I'm just going to continue with the color, with the same colors, with the darker, and try to create perhaps even darker greens. I think that could be a good idea. Also break up some of the attached highlights. But I think that would be the next step. Yeah, just to build on that green, the darker green, and also apply some brush strokes on top so I can just disintegrate it a little bit more. It gets a little bit more chopped up. So I think that's just going to be the plan. But, you know, it's just as usual. It's just amazing. It just feels like, okay, cypress trees, it's just going to be even too easy to do. And now I feel like I have so much work to do. I really want to take it to the next level. I really want to build on what I've got. And it's just so amazing how complex a cypress tree can be. And I haven't even done the trunk. And luckily I have no land, so I don't have any shadows or anything underneath, which is something that we haven't talked about, the cast shadows. Try not to make them too polished, because the idea is to make this painting look like we actually were observing it and not off of a photograph. If you make the cast shadows too polished or perfect or elaborated, it's going to show that you had a static image as a reference, because in real life the shadow just changes dramatically. So cast shadows are not as specific as in a photograph. All right, let's take a break. This was really quite something. Jen, how are you?
I'm great. Just
Right,
watching the
so
process. It's amazing.
I'm sorry.
I just watching the process. It's amazing, the transformations.
Oh my gosh. All right, well, great. So let's do this. 5 minutes, 1:15. Let's reconvene. I'm gonna take a photo, upload it. We encourage you to do the same. Take this 10 minutes to, number one, stretch, because we get really tense with application of paint and stuff like that. Drink water, use the restroom, stuff your face with something, because we use a lot of energy. We need to recuperate it. And yeah, upload. It's a long list of chores. Upload the photo and all that stuff. So 1:15, we'll see you. We're gonna stop the recording now, and then the rest will be not recorded. All right, we'll see you at 1:15.